Aquarius, welcome to your January 2020 Astro Update. It's Raina here. So, as a year begins, and this is true every year for you, you may feel like you are in hermit mode, which is uncharacteristic for the average Aquarius person, unless you actually have the sun or other personal planets in your 12th house. Maybe that would make you a lot more a lover of solitude. But the sun is in the sign right before yours until, let's see, the 20th of January. So that's like pretty much 3 weeks. And so you may even feel like physically a little bit less energetic than usual. But on the emotional or spiritual level, you may just crave being alone with the sun in the 12th house. And this is you waiting to make your debut when you have your the solar return, the sun going into your sign. And there's even going to be a new moon at an early degree of Aquarius this month. On the 3rd, Mars goes into Sagittarius. So until the 3rd of the month, and so this is coming in from December, you've had Mars in the 10th house, and that's the house of career. And that's pretty interesting because a lot of you will be listening to this in December, and this will be true for you at that point. And Mars in the 10th house can mean that a person is very ambitious, is on overdrive in terms of trying to be successful, maybe trying to get ahead, get a promotion, things of that nature. And because of that, and because of the nature of Mars, there can even be conflicts with authority figures. Because Mars is very spontaneous, very impatient, and in the 10th house, it's all about one's status, one's career goals. On the 3rd, when Mars goes into the 11th house, it's going into the house that you rule in the universal chart, I should say. And Mars in the 11th house can take that aggression and apply it to friends and groups. And so therefore, you still have to watch how you're approaching things, because you don't want to fight with your friends. And it doesn't have to be fighting like something nasty. It can be maybe being more active with them. So, for instance, it's funny because I'm talking about being a hermit, and here I am talking about being active with friends or groups. Perhaps this is more of a career move, in a sense, where you're networking, and this is part of your bid to become more successful in your career, because Mars is ambition, and with the 11th house, you could be using groups of people to advance your ambition. The 11th house is also the house of friendship, or of hopes and wishes, and that can be something that you're going after in an aggressive way. Like you're not going to allow anyone to stop your dreams, and you vow to yourself for whatever reason. Perhaps you felt like you sacrificed something for far too long, and now you're going to try to make those dreams come true. And the 11th house, when I say hopes and wishes, it can be long-term goals that you have that are not necessarily tied to, career matters. So that's going on. And on the 10th, we have a lunar eclipse at 20 degrees of Cancer. So in 2020, we're going to still have the eclipses in Cancer and Capricorn, but they're going to be joined by Sag and Gemini. So Cancer for you is the 6th house of health and work. A lunar eclipse can, mean different things. It certainly can mean a jolt, some sort of change, inevitable change that is occurring in this particular work sector. So is there a possible connection between Mars in the 10th, a recent transit, and this eclipse in your work sector? Possibly. And this may, I've heard astrologers talk about the eclipse even being active before the official date, not to mention afterwards. So this may be something that some of you experienced later in December, that you found yourself having to look for another job. And this is because, the reason I'm saying that it might have occurred before is because it seems like that's when these companies tend to do it, before Christmas, so that they can have a new, the new year is going to be a new budget for their corporation or what have you. And I discussed this in one of my tarot readings. I don't know if it was for your sign or not. But the point being that this is at the beginning of the year. If some people, I'm the kind of person where I don't like to put anything out in the universe that would create any kind of anxiety for people, because I feel like, we should be inspirational when we are doing astrology and tarot readings. But by the same token, if a person has a belief that they are not worried about anything or anyone leaving them, then it's all good, because the only people that really freak out at the possibility of losing their job or losing a relationship are people that are too attached to begin with. And there's not a sense of freedom in that. So, hopefully, if this kind of thing, if you have not heard that you will be losing your job at this time, whenever you're listening to this, certainly don't worry about it. But by the same token, think to yourself, if I do find that I'm having to look for a new job, perhaps this is the universe's gift to me. Maybe I'm staying somewhere too long and I'm not happy anyway. And you're kind of reframing it. But this could also be something on the emotional level where you are realizing something related to your health. This could be some kind of a download or insight, or about your service to others, which is, kind of when I say work, it's about your service to others. And doesn't that sound better than work? Work sounds like you're just slaving away. And service to others sounds like something that you're electing to do because you are realizing that this is one of the main purposes of life, is how you can take your talents and use them to best serve others. And that's what this lunar eclipse could be about also, is that you kind of realize what your talents are, what you came here to do. On the same day, your ruler, Uranus goes direct at 2 degrees of Taurus. So here we are talking about, for you, Aquarius, the fourth house of home and family, which has, I think it was last March when it went into Uranus. Boy, it didn't go very far. I think it only went to like 5 degrees or so, or 6 degrees of Taurus all year. But now that Uranus is direct, all the planets are direct. So the rest of the month is just like complete green light for things that you want to accomplish. But in terms of how this impacts you concerning matters related to home and family, some of you may have had a change of heart when it comes to where you live. This may be a period of time in the next, I think it would be probably like 7 years or so, where you may move possibly more than once, where unexpected things happen as concerns your mother, as that's the fourth house too. And so you have to be willing to be flexible about your home base, because you might have like some surprises along the way. Let's put it that way. On the 13th, Venus goes into Pisces, so Venus has been in your sign until the 13th. And that is very good for attracting good stuff to you in general. But now that Venus is in the second house, it's in the house that it rules. So this is particularly good for earning potential or attraction of money in general when Venus is in its own house, because Venus brings money wherever it goes. On the 16th, Mercury goes into your sign. So not only is the sun in the 12th house, but Mercury is as well until the 16th. And then it goes into your sign, and you are much more able to convey your beliefs in a cohesive manner. Mercury in the 12th house is not necessarily good for communication in general, unless it's with ETs and other entities from other spiritual dimensions. But in the first house, this can be you advocating for yourself, promoting yourself, and doing so in a way that really lets other people know who you are, whether this is looking for a job and being able to express what you're about in the best possible way, or being on a date and having the other person kind of asking you questions about yourself. It's funny because I wonder if Aquarians are more into online dating than the average person, because you're about technology. And so that wouldn't be something that you would find a turn off for sure. You might find it very intriguing. And it's funny because I was just flashing on being, I don't know if it was a cafe, something where I was out and about, and overhearing a conversation where I felt like like it was like kind of an interview type of a scenario, but I think they must have met online and, kind of like interviewing each other in terms of like, okay, are you compatible? And it just seemed like kind of a funny way to go about dating, where you're kind of checking off this list. I'm sure you wouldn't do it that way. So why did I bring it up, huh? I just thought it was funny. On the 20th, the sun goes into Aquarius. So the sun is in your sign, getting that shot of Aquarian energy where you feel like you've come back to yourself, come back to life, reanimated, if you will, and much more ready to kind of show your face to the world, I guess I would call it. The first house is the house of the self, the house of the body, so what other people see, and that's just more out there versus the 12th house, the monk's house. On the 24th, this is your new moon, 4 degrees of Aquarius. 2020 is a 4 universal year, so there's a emphasis on foundation. I remember recently looking up a numerology site just to kind of like solidify my belief that the number 4 was connected to Saturn, because it made perfect sense to me. I think of Saturn as foundations. And needless to say, I was shocked and totally confused and irritated when the first site I went to said that it was ruled by Uranus. I was like, on what planet could that possibly be true? How could the number 4, which is connected to the square, that's why we would say foundation, be connected to Uranus, which is so unpredictable and is not connected to building something solid, because there might be something that totally changes the narrative. So I did some more digging and I found more confirmation of Saturn, but I still can't figure out the Uranus. So this is a time to kind of set your intentions for 2020. That's the cool thing about having your solar return in January, and in this case, having your new moon at an early degree of Aquarius, where you can set intentions actually in the month of January, because I think it feels so good for a lot of people to make New Year's resolutions, that freshness of the year. This does begin our new calendar, and even if we don't keep our resolutions sometimes, it still is fun to make them and embrace change and evolution, self-growth, if you will. Okay, Aquarius, that's what I have for you. If you would like a look at 2020 using your specific natal chart, I have a natal chart interpretation and 2020 reading that I'm promoting, because most people are going to be watching this in December, so it makes perfect sense. So that's linked below. My website is rainandmoonastrology.com. Have a great beginning of the year. Take care. Bye.